Hwei looks complicated, but that's not why people lose on him. Most Hwei players don't lose because they miss spells. They lose because they don't understand control. If you're treating Hwei like a combo mage, you're already wrong. This champion isn't about speed, mechanics, or damage charts. He's about forcing decisions before fights even start. In this guide, I'll show you how to make fights unwinnable before they begin, without playing faster, riskier, or flashier. Let's get into it. This is what Hwei does best and where he struggles. Hwei dominates space with massive AoE damage and layered crowd control, letting him dictate where and how fights are played. Between speed zones, shielding areas, and wide snare coverage, Hwei excels at protecting allies and disrupting anyone trying to dive. Most of Hwei's kit operates at long range, allowing him to snipe, zone, and even control fights from distances that rival true artillery mages. With 10 abilities and multiple spell paths, almost every situation can be approached differently, rewarding creativity, foresight, and precision. Strong AoE coverage combined with mana recovery and empowered autos lets Hwei control waves effortlessly and stay active on the map. Those strengths come with trade-offs, so let's cover Hwei's weaknesses. Hwei is extremely fragile, meaning poor positioning or a single misstep can get him instantly deleted. With no dashes or blinks, his movement speed tools aren't enough to escape highly mobile assassins or hard commits. Nearly all of Hwei's impact comes from landing skill shots, so missed spells dramatically lower his threat and control. Hwei burns through mana quickly, so careless spell usage can shut down his pressure before fights even start. Hwei demands long-term practice to build muscle memory, and because his margin for error is small, mistakes are heavily punished. Those are Hwei's biggest strengths and weaknesses in practice. Hwei has 10 active abilities, grouped into 3 spell sets: damage, utility, and defense. This passive is what turns Hwei from a poke mage into a real damage threat. Once you play around it, every trade feels like you're casting an extra spell. After hitting an enemy with 2 damaging abilities, the target erupts for bonus area damage, rewarding clean spell layering. Most players treat Hwei spells as isolated casts instead of deliberately pairing them, which wastes a huge amount of his damage. Always plan your spells in pairs. If you're only casting 1 ability and backing off, you're leaving free damage on the table. Hit 2 spells, then disengage. This is Hwei's fastest way to apply damage and pressure from range. QQ fires a long-range projectile that deals immediate damage on hit. Players overhold QQ looking for perfect value instead of using it to apply instant poke. This is your guaranteed quick damage tool to trigger your passive and finish low HP enemies at short to medium range. QQ deals percentage-based damage, so it's best used to poke tanks while they're near full health. It's your most efficient way to chunk frontline and reliably proc damage over time items before fights. This is Hwei's long-range finisher. It's how you snipe kills and punish low health enemies from safety. QW fires an extremely long-range shot that deals increased damage to low health targets. Most players throw QW too early, wasting its execute power on targets that aren't low enough. Hold QW until enemies drop low. Use it as the final hit after poke or a fight breaks out, not as your opener. Most players throw this out raw, but the delay is too easy to dodge. Use your snare or pull first to lock targets in place, then finish with QW. Always look for off-screen snipes on nearby skirmishes or jungle fights. Throw it in front of enemies escaping. They'll have to either take the damage or dodge backwards into you or your teammates. Don't save QW just for kills. Sniping recalls can break enemy tempo and swing pressure without ever committing to a fight. This spell is why walking into Hwei feels suffocating. If enemies stay in it, it can become his highest damage tool. QE creates a large area of damage that slows enemies caught inside. Most players throw QE raw in lane, where it's easy to walk out of and gets almost no value. Use your snare and pull, then layer QE. CC makes this spell dramatically more reliable. In teamfights, QE becomes one of Hwei's strongest AoE damage tools, punishing grouped enemies in jungle choke points and around objectives. When you're being chased, drop QE in front of you, slowing the entire path and making it extremely hard to follow without a dash or blink. QE is Hwei's best wave clear tool. This is Hwei's main movement tool. It lets you chase targets, disengage cleanly, and reposition on demand. QW creates a movement speed zone that boosts anyone moving through it. Most players only ever use WQ for themselves and miss chances to use it for nearby teammates. Use WQ on yourself to chase kills, dodge abilities, or escape danger. That's its baseline value. When allies are nearby, place it along their path as well. The zone can speed up your entire team and enable engages. This shield is what lets Hwei survive trades and blunt burst damage before fights even start. WW creates a shielded zone that absorbs damage for allies standing inside it. Many players cast WW too late. Because the shield ramps up, using it early is how you get maximum value. Use WW during trades to absorb poke and come out ahead without committing. The shield is amazing for damage over time spells. Drop W on ground allies in teamfights to negate large chunk of AoE damage. In lane, WW can help stabilize or freeze waves by letting you tank minion damage early. This is one of Hwei's most underrated spells. It quietly fuels your damage, enables your passive, and keeps you in lane far longer than most players expect. WE empowers your next 3 basic attacks, restoring mana and adding damage. Most players either ignore WE or treat it as a pure mana button, missing how much value it adds to trades and spell sequences. Activate WE before trading. The empowered autos help you proc your passive faster and win short exchanges. Use WE proactively on minions to sustain mana and stay in lane longer without losing pressure. Many players don't know this, but while WE is active, its true bonus damage applies to your Q and E spells, even your R, not just autos. It works on towers too, helping you take them faster and replenish mana. This is your panic button. EQ is how you stop divers, peel yourself, and instantly kill an enemy's engage. EQ fires a very thin skill shot that fears the target on hit. Most players try to snipe EQ from long range, but it's so skinny that throwing it raw is inconsistent. Hold EQ for enemies who are running into you. It's easier to land when they're committing to an all-in. Once EQ fears someone, your follow-up damage becomes completely reliable. EW is how you make areas unsafe. It's a trap-like route that zones space, protects you from face checks, and sets up free damage. EW places an eye that grants vision, locks onto the nearest visible enemy champion, and routes the first target in its path. Most players cast EW directly on the champion like it's a normal skill shot, instead of placing it where enemies have to walk. Use EW like a trap. Drop it in choke points, brush entrances, or objective corridors to deny space and force awkward pathing. Teleporting enemies are a great option too. Because it grants vision, EW is a safe check tool. Place it into fog or brushes before you walk up. If EW roots someone, your follow-up becomes predictable. It's a clean setup for damage like QW, QE, and even your ultimate. EE is the spell that turns messy fights into free AoE. When you pull enemies together, all your damage suddenly becomes easy to land. EE drops crushing draws in an area, dragging enemies towards the center, dealing damage, and applying a strong slow that quickly decays. Most players waste EE on a single target in open space, instead of saving it for moments where enemies are grouped or forced through tight paths. Look for EE when enemies are clumped. That's where the pool gets maximum value. Use EE to set up your AoE follow-up, like QE and R, by stacking enemies together first, instead of praying that they stay in your damage. This ultimate is what lets Hwei completely take over fights. Once it lands, enemies lose control and the fight slows down in your favor. Hwei unleashes a long-range control ultimate that locks down an area, dealing damage and heavily disrupting enemies caught inside. Most players throw Hwei's ultimate raw or use it first, making it easy to dodge and wasting its fight-winning potential. Look to land CC first, fears roots pools, then follow with your ultimate to make it unavoidable. In teamfights, use R after enemies commit or clump up, not as an opener, so its control and damage actually stick. As the ultimate chunks them and leaves them slowed, you can immediately follow with QW, creating one of Hwei's most reliable finishing combos. Max Q for damage, E second for CC and fight control, and W last for utility. Take your ultimate whenever it's up. This trade combo is why Hwei wins lane and most players do it in the wrong order. Start with QE to force movement, then cast EE to pull enemies back into the zone. During EE's cast, buffer WE. When the pull connects, the damage applies while WE is active, proccing the empowered damage. Hwei's passive then consumes a WE proc as well, so the combo fully expends WE automatically without needing to auto. This is reliable damage that works through minion waves. It's also Hwei's most important combo when enemies are grouped. letting you pull multiple targets into overlapping AoE for massive value in teamfights. QE, EE, WE. This combo makes certain areas of the map completely unplayable for the enemy. Start with EW to set a trap in forced paths like jungle entrances, choke points, or teleport locations. As the trap triggers, buffer WE. When the snare applies, the empowered damage procs on the target. QW is then placed on the snared enemy, layering guaranteed damage while they're locked down. Hwei's passive consumes a WE proc, fully expending WE automatically. The result is reliable long-range burst that punishes predictable movement and controls space without committing. EW, WE, QW. This combo is how Hwei converts pressure into guaranteed damage. Most players use the wrong finisher. Start with EE to lock the target in place. During the cast, buffer WE, then place QW immediately to guarantee the hit. This combo is most effective on immobile targets, works through minion waves, and is best used when enemies are around half health or lower, where QW becomes lethal. EE, WE, QW. This is Hwei's fight-ending ultimate. It can literally wipe out an entire team. Start with EE and keep your cursor at the cast point. If EE connects, immediately cast R. Because EE pulls enemies into the center, the ultimate will land as long as the pull hits. Buffer WE, then place QE on the ulted target. With the heavy slow from R, enemies are forced to stay in the QE zone longer, maximizing damage. This is Hwei's strongest grouped enemy combo. Even if you only catch one target with EE, the guaranteed ultimate can hit multiple enemies, stacking massive AoE damage and passive procs in teamfights. EE, R, WE, QE. This is Hwei's execution combo. Low health targets don't survive it. Start with EE to lock the target, then cast R immediately to force the damage. As the ultimate finishes its burst, place QW directly on the target to capitalize on the missing health damage and secure the kill. This combo is designed as a finisher, converting crowd control into guaranteed single target damage when enemies are already low. EE, R, WE, QW. This execution combo deletes squishy targets who step into the wrong space. Set EW in forced paths or around vision denial. If an enemy triggers the trap, cast R immediately to lock them down and buffer WE. Finish with QW to execute the target while they're trapped and slowed. Any mobility or squishy champion caught by this setup is effectively dead. EW, R, WE, QW. This is Hwei's peel combo. If you do this correctly, you almost never die. EQ is your emergency button to fear the target chasing you. Once they're feared, R is guaranteed, locking them in place. Follow QE to create a massive slow and damage zone. Then use WQ to speed yourself away. This combo buys maximum space, breaks pursuit, and often leaves enemies low enough that you can turn the fight if needed. EQ, R, QE, WQ. These are the core combos. Use them as damage windows, not something you force every fight. Take Arcane Comment in around 90% of games. It covers everything Hwei wants: poke, pressure, and reliable damage throughout lane and fights. Arcane Comment fits Hwei's playstyle perfectly because his spells consistently slow, pull, or zone enemies, making the comment extremely easy to land. It gives you lane pressure early, scales well into mid-game, and works in almost every matchup, which is why it's your default rune. You can also run Summon Aerie in specific matchups. Summon Aerie is mainly taken into melee matchups where you can auto-attack frequently and get extra value from repeated trades. It gives you more consistent chip damage in lane, and Hwei can also proc Aerie's shield through his W, allowing you to get extra shielding for your teammates. Start with Doran's Ring and 2 health potions. Your core build is very straightforward: Blackfire Torch, Sorcerer's Shoes, and then Liandry's or Horizon Focus. Blackfire Torch into Sorcerer's Shoes gives Hwei everything he needs: damage over time, burst amplification, and magic penetration that scales well into fights. From there, Horizon Focus is your go-to option against squishier teams for higher burst and great pick potential with the vision, while Liandry's Anguish is better into tankier teams where you need sustained damage to shred high health targets. From here, Rabadon's Death Cap is your main damage spike. Zhonya's Hourglass is situational if you need safety first. Shadow Flame is a solid alternative if you want earlier damage before Death Cap. Void Star finishes the build to deal with magic resistance. That's pretty much it, no complicated branching, just adjust based on the game. Take Flash and Teleport in most games. Flash is mandatory for repositioning and survival, always take this. Teleport gives you lane safety, map presence, and the ability to scale without falling behind. However, Teleport can be substituted for a summoner spell that helps you survive major threats. Into close range burst threats, you need to shut down on contact. Take Cleanse against game-losing crowd control that prevents you from playing fights. Take Barrier against long-range burst and poke that threatens you before fights even start. Hwei's early game is about control, not all-ins. Your goal in lane is to pressure space, chip health, and force mistakes, not to rush kills. In the first few levels, focus on safe poke and wave control. Use your abilities to threaten zones, not to spam damage. Every time you place a damage area or show an ability, you're shaping how the enemy moves. That's where Hwei gains his advantage. Look for short, clean trades, especially when enemies walk up for CS. You don't need to commit hard, just pressure them, back off, and repeat. Over time, this slowly pushes them into kill range without you ever taking risks. Against melee champions, you can be more aggressive. Walk forward, threaten abilities, and punish them every time they step up. Against range matchups, play patiently and focus on wave management and spacing rather than forcing trades. Mana management matters early. Don't throw spells just to throw them. Every cast should either secure CS, deny CS, or pressure movement. If you're using abilities without achieving one of those, you're wasting resources. Once you unlock your ultimate, your threat level spikes hard. You don't need to force it immediately, just the possibility of your ultimate changes how enemies play. Let them make the mistakes first, then punish it. Mid-game is where Hwei transitions from lane control into map control. Once plates fall and players start grouping, your priority shifts from winning lane to owning space around objectives. Play around river, jungle entrances, and choke points, where your abilities get maximum value. Before dragons, heralds, and baron setups, arrive early and start placing zones that make it uncomfortable for enemies to walk in. You don't need to force anything. Just existing in these areas with your spells available already pressures the map. If you're side laning, do it safely and with vision. Push waves with abilities, then back off. Hwei is excellent at clearing and rotating, but not at extended solo skirmishes without information. Your goal isn't to split push, it's to push waves, rotate first, and be present for objectives. Always think one step ahead. Ask yourself where the next fight is likely to happen, and position early so enemies are forced to walk through you. Hwei is strongest when enemies come into him, not when he chases them. In teamfights, Hwei's job is to control space first, then layer damage. Position just behind your front line and resist the urge to throw everything at once. Start fights by slowing, zoning, or pulling enemies into awkward positions. Then commit damage when they're forced to stand still or funnel through tight areas. Your ultimate is most effective used after enemies are already disrupted, not as an opener, but as a punishment. Fights should feel uncomfortable for the enemy. If they hesitate, split up, or back off, you're doing your job. If divers come for you, switch gears immediately and use your peel tools to break their engage. Once they're slowed or feared, you can often turn the fight back in your favor. A patient Hwei who stays alive will control the fight far longer than a Hwei who overcommits early. Late game on Hwei is all about patience and discipline. At this stage, death timers are long and one mistake can end the game, so your priority is to stay alive and control space around major objectives. Play tightly with your team, hover around Baron and Elder, and key jungle choke points, and avoid showing alone without vision. You're no longer looking to poke randomly. Every spell should either deny space or punish positioning. In fights, slow everything down. Let enemies walk into you instead of forcing engages. Your value comes from layering zones, controlling movement, and punishing oversteps, not from chasing kills. Hold your ultimate until enemies are committed or funneled. A well-timed ult late can instantly decide the fight. If you stay alive, Hwei becomes overwhelming. Enemies can't walk freely, can't engage cleanly, and can't disengage easily. Play patiently, protect your position, and let your spells do the work. Late game is where controlled pressure wins games, not flashy plays. Most players have no idea how useful QW really is. Just because you can't see them doesn't mean you can't snipe them. When enemies back off into Fog of War at low HP, QW becomes extremely effective. Most players retreat to predictable areas to recall. With experience, you can pre-aim QW to punish these habits. QW also stops you from losing cannons you should never miss. When you're too far away or don't have the time to walk up, QW can be used to snipe low health minions, especially cannons, to avoid missing gold. This can amount to almost 300 to 400 gold in a game. With Horizon Focus, QW is literally a free farsight alteration. Landing QW on enemies taking Baron or Dragon reveals the entire area, giving you safe, long-distance vision that can completely change objective setups. Horizon Focus turns QW into a long-range chase tool. When QW procs Horizon Focus, you gain vision of the target, which lets you keep chaining QW from long range instead of disengaging. As long as you maintain vision, you can repeatedly chip them down, reposition and recast, often turning what looks like into a single poke into a full kill. With enough haste, you can even proc your passive. QE isn't threatening because it hits, it's threatening because it exists. Even when QE is easy to dodge, it controls space. The zone forces enemies to pause, reroute, or give up an area. Because QE has a short cooldown compared to Hwei's E spells, it's often his best zoning tool, letting him repeatedly deny areas without committing to any crowd control. QE isn't just for fight, it's free objective damage. Anytime your team is taking Baron, Dragon, or Herald, use QE to help burn it faster. The AoE damage adds up quickly and lets you contribute high damage. Treat QE as part of your objective DPS, not just combat spell. This single timing trick is the difference between a kill and a clean escape. You can cast WE while an auto attack or ability is mid-flight to gain extra damage and mana efficiency. This works with autos and spells, for example QW into WE. When you WE before QW lands, that extra damage from WE could be the difference between a kill and clutch escape. This gives Hwei free tempo without spending a single point of mana. Using WQ out of base lets you reach lane faster without costing mana, and W will be off cooldown by the time you arrive. Small optimizations like this can translate into earlier wave control or extra CS. This is one of the only ways Hwei can force a fight instantly. EQ then immediately flash. EQ flash is one of Hwei's few surprise tools. It lets you fear targets instantly and guarantees your ultimate landing, making it extremely powerful for picks or sudden all-ins. Most players overestimate Hwei's passive and still misuse it. Hwei's passive AoE can help with wave clear and teamfight damage, but it's not guaranteed. Enemies with dashes or blinks can escape the explosion. In fight, passive damage can also chain onto multiple champions, increasing your AoE impact when abilities are layered correctly. If your combos feel weaker than they should, this is why. While abilities trigger WE's bonus damage and mana, only autos with WE count towards a passive proc. Whenever you see the passive indicator under enemy champions, finish combos with an empowered auto to maximize damage. When you're almost out of mana, WE is your most important spell. Casting WE first lets empowered autos restore enough mana to cast one more ability, turning a dead fight into a playable one. Use WE, land the autos, then spend the extra regain mana on your final spell, proccing your passive for extra damage. This is how Hwei wins fights he shouldn't. In extended trades or combos, it's possible to proc Hwei's passive twice in a single rotation if you space abilities and autos correctly. Start your combos with any Q ability since it has the lowest cooldown, then use an E ability followed by a WE auto attack and finish with another Q ability. Don't use the W only for picks. It's also a powerful scouting tool. You can safely check brushes, Dragon or Baron when vision is limited and information is critical. This lets Hwei win lane without casting a single spell. Most players don't realize they're reacting to a spell that was never cast. When you tap an ability once, Hwei's animation and color changes instantly, which makes enemies dodge or back off before anything is cast. You can use this to test movement, threaten space, or deny CS without committing mana. If they start respecting it too much, that's when you actually throw out abilities and punish them for standing still. Over time, this turns lane into pure mind games. Enemies are reacting to threats you control. Hwei is a control mage who excels at shaping the lane and punishing movement. No matter the matchup, your baseline win condition is the same. Control space, manage waves, and stay alive. You don't need to win lane outright. Hwei's value comes from pressure, zone control, and mid-game fights where enemies are forced to walk into him. Against immobile or low-threat champions, Hwei can play aggressively and control the lane. Use your abilities to pressure CS, deny space, and slowly chip opponents down. These matchups let you dictate the pace, but there's no need to rush. Steady pressure and clean wave control will naturally put you ahead. Most even matchups come down to spacing, cooldowns, and discipline. Look for short trades when enemies step up, manage the wave carefully, and avoid committing spells without a clear purpose. Winning these lanes is about consistency, patience, not forcing damage. Aiming and dodging skill shots will decide the lane. High mobility or burst heavy champions punish mistakes instantly. If you misposition or waste key abilities, they can force all-ins before you react. In these lanes, safety comes first. Prioritize wave clear over trading. Hold your peel tools defensively. Respect engage ranges and play around vision. If the lane feels dangerous, don't fight it. Let the wave come to you, stay patient, and play for objectives in mid-game. Hwei loses very little by slowing the game down. At the end of the day, Hwei doesn't need to dominate lane. He just needs to reach mid-game cleanly and control fights through positioning and space. Hwei can also function as a viable bot lane carry, especially when your team already has plenty of AD and needs a strong AP damage source. In these games, Hwei brings consistent damage, heavy zone control, and excellent synergy with supports who can set up or chain crowd control. In bot lane, your strength comes from working with your support, not playing solo. Guaranteed CC, follow-up CC, or even soft slows make it much easier to land your damage and control fights early. Hwei can actively support his lane partner by sharing shields and movement speed and letting both of you reposition, trade, and disengage more effectively. All builds and runes covered in this guide still apply here. You can use the same cheat sheet, rune setups, item paths without changing much. The main adjustment is mindset. Play around your support, look for coordinated trades, and use your abilities to control the lane together, not just farm. Hwei bot isn't about hard snowballing early, it's about reaching mid-game safely, where you or your teamfight presence and magic damage become extremely valuable. Hwei can be played as a situational support, but it's far less forgiving than his other roles. With lower gold income, your spell usage and positioning have to be much more precise, and falling behind quickly reduces your impact. Because of this, it's not recommended to learn Hwei through support. The role leaves very little room for error. For support specifically, don't take teleport. Run heal instead for lane survivability and skirmishes. Start with the AP support item and upgrade into it normally. Outside of that, the rest of the guide still applies. That's everything you need to start winning on Hwei. Not by spamming spells or forcing damage, but by controlling space, shaping fights, and making the game unwinnable for your opponent. If this helped, consider subscribing. I'm Zeus, and I'll see you in the next one.